details are coming out. I'm just reading this on the AJC's SEC country. He informed Harris Pastides and Ray Tanner of his resignation this morning at USC because, remember, he was working as an ambassador for USC, making six figures, essentially just to wear a golf shirt and visor everywhere he went. That's good work if you can get it. I'd be interested to see what the Gators are paying him. I don't blame Steve Spurrier. I know there are some ruffled feathers, no pun intended, from some Gamecock fans. Look, this is Steve Spurrier, number one. And I think I saw this on social media on Twitter today where somebody pointed out that, look, we all kind of knew that he was on loan to South Carolina for a while, that he wasn't ours to keep. And the fact that Steve Spurrier gave you a decade plus, I mean, really just a decade because last year was a catastrophe, but he did give a solid decade for the Gamecocks, their best run in school history. You can't erase that. He's not taking that with him. He's not taking all those wins and all those memories. Those stay. But Steve Spurrier is gone. Some interesting comments from Steve Spurrier about his new job. We'll let you hear from him, and then some comments about why he did this now, and maybe his role at South Carolina, as he put it, not quite enough, wanted to do more. Let's start unpacking this Steve Spurrier stuff, because really this is probably, let's face it, the last time we will ever really have Steve Spurrier as a major topic on the show. He's going to come up, but for him to be a newsmaker in this state, this is pretty much it for a long time, and really the end of an era for Steve Spurrier at South Carolina. I'm sure they'll bring him back at some point at a football game, honor him, and do all those sorts of things, but that won't be happening anytime soon. First thing that I want to do, let me open up the phone lines, because I know some of you want to chime in on this. USC and Clemson fans have had a lot to say about this on Twitter. Your thoughts on the end of the Steve Spurrier era at South Carolina. Are you okay with how this happened? It was a great run for Steve Spurrier, but it was a little bit of a messy ending. Walking away mid-season, his choice. He walked away mid-season. Took some heat for that, took the ambassador role, and abruptly quit that to go back to Gainesville. So are you okay with that? That's the first question. And we'll all chime in on this as well. I have thoughts on it. I know you do as well, Pro, and you too, J-Dog. So if you want to chime in, 800-956-7266, toll-free number. Reach out, grab a line. We will take your phone calls tonight. We won't keep you dangling too long. We do have a lot of things planned tonight. We're going to talk some high school football. First day of practice around the state, team starting. So we'll have David Shelton on to talk some high school football. Yeah, it's right around the corner. Our full Monty with Monty Dutton coming up. Lots of things. Carolina Panther training camp update. We'll hear from Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin tonight on the show. So it's going to be a busy, busy show. But we have to unpack this Steve Spurrier news. And let's let you hear from Steve Spurrier first. Here he is. This is courtesy of the Florida Gators, and just a few quick comments that Spurrier made about his return to Gainesville.
My wife and I are thrilled to be coming back to my alma mater, the University of Florida. We've actually lived in Gainesville more years than anywhere in our life. So fortunately, Coach McElwain and Jeremy Foley gave the invitation, and it's fun to be on a team. And obviously, I've been a Gator my whole life, and now I can be 100% Gator. Well, my role is a little bit ambassador. I like the word consultant a little bit better. I'll spend a lot of time with Phil Farr, Gator Booster Director, and hopefully we can spread some goodwill and get some of our boosters that are in position to get back to the university in good shape. Coach McElwain, I spend a little time with him, only in the meeting rooms. I'm not coaching anything. I want everybody to be clear. I'm not interfering with any of the coaches. But if he and Coach Nuss want to ask some questions or what's your opinion, I'm free to do that. That's perfectly within the rules. So if I can help do that, that'll be good. Maybe bring back some former players. We got a bunch of guys that played in the 90s and the 2000s, and maybe we can get them back on campus a little bit more and do that. I think would be very helpful. Well, I really like Coach Mack. He's not a guy with a lot of ego. A lot of people may not want a former coach to come back and hang around, but he certainly encourages it, and he's a big reason that I'm here now. So last year, the Gators accomplished a lot, winning the Eastern Division, but Coach Mack and his guys are looking for more. They're building this program, hopefully back to the level that Coach Urban Meyer and I had it several years ago. And I know that's what all Gators want, and that's what we're shooting for.
So there's Steve Spurrier, now a full-fledged Gator, and he has said that he's going to still pull for the Gamecocks every game except for one. That's when they play the Gators. So he will be rooting against guys that he recruited. When he came to South Carolina, there was a little bit of a statute of limitations between him leaving Gainesville. He didn't go straight from Florida to South Carolina. We know he went to the NFL, got flushed out there, sat out a year, and then came to South Carolina. And off he went. But not shocked. No one should be shocked that Steve Spurrier ended up at Florida. I maybe was a little surprised that it happened this fast. I thought he would take this year, especially to kind of get out of it, let everybody decompress, and then move forward. But, the Gators, to their credit, they didn't have any hurt feelings about when he abruptly left them and then went to the Washington Redskins and then went to an East school, which could have chapped them, certainly, and they didn't have any hurt feelings, no egos that were bruised.
Tim Tebow back
they brought him right back. They did have some success, and had Florida been terrible. But anyway, he did make some comments here, and this is in the AJC. Spurrier was asked about his ambassador role to Colombia, to ambassador and consultant in Gainesville. Spurrier was apparently perturbed by his post-retirement role with the Gamecocks. I'm reading from Alex Martin Smith's story here in SEC Country, saying his forthcoming job with the Gators, he'll be more involved. Quoting Spurrier, "Yeah, I think it's a little more," he said during a conference call Friday afternoon. "I wanted to do a little bit more, and maybe South Carolina wouldn't allow me to." End of quote. Spurrier said he informed Harris Pastides, USC president and athletic director Ray Tanner, of his resignation Friday morning and made clear he's grateful for his time at South Carolina. Now, on some fans being perturbed or having hurt feelings in the Palmetto State, Spurrier said, quote, "I can't help that. People are going to have hard feelings no matter what. I guess I had the field named after me at Florida while I was the ambassador in South Carolina, so they didn't have any hard feelings down here. I'm hoping that most people will understand, although that is a fair question. I hope they understand that this is my alma mater. This is where I lived so much," and so forth. It's funny reading Spurrier so much. This, that, and the other. Yep. And I'm not so sure the job I had up there was a long-time job. It was very nice of the president and the athletic director to let me hang around there the last 7 months, but I don't know that any of us saw that as a long-term job. As far as Steve Spurrier is concerned, everyone should have seen this latest move coming. Spurrier saying, quote, "It was sort of inevitable that I had a chance to come to my alma mater. That's something that I'd want to do." And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I mean, Spurrier was making six figures at South Carolina. I went back to a Josh Kendall story from May that I thought was interesting. A $100,000 ambassador position at South Carolina. And here's how he described his job to Josh Kendall. Quote, "I sort of check in with University President Harris Pastides and Athletics Director Ray Tanner a little bit and do whatever I can do. I wear my Carolina visor all over the place trying to spread some goodwill." Now, even then, he was talking about wanting to figure out what he was going to do next. And, and he wasn't talking like that was a permanent job. But when he talked about what his next job would be, Spurrier said, quote, "I hope to be involved somehow, but not too much. I don't know if television is a possibility or not. I don't know if some other semi-job. I know I'm finished coaching. I have no desire to coach or assistant coach or anything. I might just take a year off too. I don't know." So he was not going to stay on as this ambassador long term. Now, I don't know what he meant by wanting to do more, and South Carolina wouldn't let him. And I'm sure if you're Will Muschamp, you don't want Spurrier, especially with his old players there. You can't have him coming into meetings. And at Florida, he's far enough removed where he can do that. Now, if you're Jim McElwain, he's going to have to put on the company face. And all of a sudden, he's the second most popular coach in Gainesville. That is a little
until
awkward.
He wins this first SEC championship.
Yeah, well, and he played for it last year.
Now, I normally don't talk about the media much, but any article I read on Steve Spurrier that's in the AJC, I want to see how it's written. I have never seen a major newspaper that cannot stand a football coach more than the AJC tries to tweak Spurrier every time they get it. So,
well, yeah, he had the whole thing. I mean, that was about almost a year ago to the day when Spurrier had that impromptu news conference when he talked about his enemies. I mean, think about what a long, really a short, strange trip it's been in terms of length of time. But he had that news conference saying, "My enemies, they're saying we got a really good team coming back, and we'll see what happens when we play Clemson." And that was him about this time last year. Really, almost to the date he did that. And now a year later, he's at Florida.
He's back.
And all it's not like South Carolina fired him and he took this job. Then I mean, these are decisions that he made, that he decided it was time to do at this stage in the life. And he wants to be a consultant and chime in. And Spurrier, it's good that he's around the game.
And knowing Spurrier, his feeling is probably, look, Will needs his room. I'm out of here. My alma mater's got me. It's Will's show. Let me get out of the picture.
I looked it up, by the way. July 22nd of last year, Steve Spurrier had that hastily called press conference where he started calling out his enemies, mostly at the AJC. He did name a few guys by name, saying that all of that's just enemies talking. And what were people saying? His program had slipped and he was about to retire. What happened? His program slipped. He walked away just over a year later. Steve Spurrier is an ambassador and consultant at Florida. So his enemies were right, I guess you could say. His enemies were right. 800-956-7266. What's your reaction? A lot of people on Twitter are saying they don't have any reaction. They don't care. South Carolina fan. Now, some have a pretty pointed reaction. I'll read some of them at SportsTalk SC if you want to hit us up there. Or you can drop an email, talkback@SportsTalk SC. Are you upset with how Spurrier left things? Are you okay with the fact that he went ahead and bounced and is back in Florida? To me, you'd sign up for the Steve Spurrier era at South Carolina again right now, knowing everything, because he gave you more than you've ever had. He's a winningest coach in school history. There were some people asking, should South Carolina rename the indoor practice facility that's named after Steve Spurrier and Jerry Spurrier? No. He's not Joe Paterno. He's a winningest coach in school history. You keep that name on. You should still have him in your ring of honor, still recognize that he was your coach. You don't do that. I mean, he's Steve Spurrier. This is what he does. I mean, he's gone, but he gave you 10 years. He went back to Florida. That's where he belongs. I don't know what he meant by he wanted to do more at South Carolina. That wasn't really realistic, because that would be wrong to do to Will Muschamp, to be like, yeah, Steve Spurrier is just going to show up in our offensive meetings and tell Kurt Roper what he needs to do. It's not fair to Perry Orth or any of those players. You just can't do that. So it's probably best to rip the Band-Aid off and everybody move on. Ray Tanner, in a statement, said glowing things about Steve Spurrier, as he should have. You wouldn't expect anything different. This isn't a bad breakup. I mean, breaking up's hard to do, but I think you would call it an amicable divorce between South Carolina and Steve Spurrier. And I don't think he'll be taking pot shots at Will Muschamp or USC. And I mean, I think he'll treat USC the same way he did Florida when he was the head coach at USC. And that'll be that. And you thank him for the memories and you honor him when the time is right. Certainly you bring him back for a game at some point, not this year, but some point. And you go on with your life. This is life without Spurrier now.
The key point is, the question is always been asked, can you win, and can you win big at South Carolina? Well, Spurrier has shown you can.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had Spurrier would have been 10 years younger, because let's face it, I think probably toward the end, people were using his age against him in recruiting. Some people almost started mumbling about the kingpin down in Alabama. Well, he's getting close to 65. They're going to always talking about the Mad Hatter being in his 60s.
Yeah.
They're starting to use the age against you.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a guy that's 70. You knew it was going to happen.
Straight to your calls on the other side of the break. Line them up, 800-956-7266. Be right back. just a moment, we'll update the PGA Championship, also have recruiting, and check in on the Panthers training camp in Spartanburg. All that coming up and more, but want to get to the phones as we promised, 800-956-7266. We're going to head up to Greenville from our Columbia studios and welcome in Billy to the show. Hello, Billy.
Yeah, just a couple points. One, I guess in a sense, he's all sort of hurt, and from the perspective that, like he was Mr. Swagger, and, and he gave us fans that cockiness. And, don't get me wrong, Will Muschamp may be great there, but, it was still just, he was just a cocky kind of guy, and that's what USC needed at least for a while.
Yeah, he definitely brought credibility to South Carolina that they'd never had before. Lou Holtz was a name when they hired him, but Lou Holtz petered out pretty quick. He had the back-to-back big seasons in years 2 and 3, and then it was kind of a struggle. I mean, Steve Spurrier brought them to a level. I mean, and from 2010 to 2014 against the big teams like Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Clemson, they were 15-5. I mean, they in their entire run in the SEC, they hadn't done that. They hadn't beaten Florida since they were in the SEC, since they had joined until Steve Spurrier got there. So he was remarkable in what he did. And that's what I keep getting back to. I mean, some fans are like, oh, he shouldn't have left like that and blah, blah, blah. He quit on the team in the middle of the year. You can say all those things and not like that part of it. But the bottom line is the guy delivered on a level that no one else has in South Carolina football history. He's a winningest coach. He won an SEC East, took them to Atlanta to play for an SEC championship. People said that would never happen. He didn't win the whole thing. He won some big games. I mean, think about the teams they knocked off: Miami, Alabama. I mean, he beat Clemson 5 times in a row. He did okay. It was a good run for Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, having said that, I think I think it's still a little bit the sting from the 3-9 season. And you look at the state of the program now, I think that's a little bit of the, maybe if we got any kind of, that's what we are perturbed about a little bit.
Yeah.
We're 3-9 now, and, it really looks like we hadn't done well in recruiting.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I think sort of leaves us sort of.
But here's the point. The key point here, Auburn had a hiccup when they went down under Chiswick, and then they reloaded and bounced back. I think you're going to see football happen like that. I think the key point is what Steve Spurrier did was, and let's face it, if South Carolina fans would fess up, you carry around an inferiority complex. We can't do this. We can't do that. Why can't you? Now, the key point to Spurrier being successful, I think, is the fact you finally had a guy in here who's a head coach that knew the Southeastern Conference up and down. If you read about Spurrier, even as a young man before going to college, he used to get in his car during the summers and drive to SEC schools, soaking in what was on the campus and drawing from the history. So he knew the passion of the SEC even before he went to Florida. And so you had a guy that knew that, and he was comfortable in his own skin. And he was saying, you see what kind of state you got here? Look at this university. Why can't we win here? And sometimes you needed a guy to shake you up.
That was the first thing he said at his introductory news conference. Why not us? That was the big thing that he said. And it was a great run. I agree. The end was not pretty, and he did not leave the program. I mean, that was his biggest knock, probably, is that he did not leave the program on solid footing, but he left the program. It is better from a big picture standpoint. They have better facilities. They're better equipped to compete in the arms race that is the SEC, and he showed a blueprint that it can be done. So people won't say that anymore, but Will Muschamp has his work cut out for him. It's not like he left a ton of studs for Will Muschamp to just plug in there and start winning. There wasn't a good, but these things always get messy when coaches leave.
The key point is, if you want to put it in a nutshell, probably Steve Spurrier was a heavyweight champ that stayed in the ring maybe a year or two too long.
Oh, that's what he said. Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons years ago Jim Brown retired. He said, "Why are you retired? You still got years left." That's when you step away, when you're on top.
Very rarely do athletes or coaches, people, really almost anyone in sports, get out when they should. They all stay a little too long, past their prime. The great ones. I mean, Michael Jordan, again, you don't want to picture him in that Washington Wizards uniform, but he did that. That happened. That was Michael Jordan. Let's check in on the PGA Championship, then we'll get back to your phone calls. Also, a lot of action on social media, as you can imagine, at SportsTalk SC. You can hit us up there if you want to share your thoughts on Steve Spurrier. There's other things to talk about as well, including the PGA Championship. Jimmy Walker, who led after 18 holes, is well on his way to leading after 36. He's at 10 under, playing 18 now, 5 under on his round today. So an impressive round for him. Milano Grillo is at 7 under par along with Jason Day. So those two are tied for second place. Now, there is at least one local that is hanging around, William McGirt, the Wofford product, 3 under par. He's in the clubhouse. He shot 3 under today after an even par 70 on his opening round. So good job for him. He's tied for 12th. Jordan Spieth also had a nice round today at 3 under par. So those two guys are looming. Now, Bill Haas, let's see how last check, Bill Haas, the Greenville native, was at even par. And I'm not sure if he was able to maintain that. No, he's playing the backside now at 1 over. The cut right now is projected at 1 over. So he's right on that cut line with a few holes left to play. He's got to play 15 through 18. One guy that you don't have to worry about playing through the weekend, U.S. Open champ Dustin Johnson.
I told you yesterday he was teetering on the brink of not making the cut.
No. Yeah, but he's not teetering on the brink anymore. He's
gone.
Yeah, he was teetering on the brink of finishing in dead last. He really, really had a bad tournament. He shot a 2 over par 72 today, which is 5 strokes better than he was yesterday, but he's 9 over, and that will be that. He did not play well. John Daly's going to beat him. Again, that would have been a heck of a prop
probably
bet.
Went back to the M&Ms. He's addicted to M&Ms.
I think he's addicted to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think M&Ms are the worst of his demons, the least of his demons, I should say. So that's your update from there. The Panthers worked out again this afternoon. Kelvin Benjamin back on the field. We'll hear from him. Cam Newton had a few things to say. Boy, his look today was interesting. He had this huge Crocodile Dundee looking hat on. He's grown a goatee. That's not really news, but he's dyed his goatee blonde. He's got a blonde goatee.
And the straw hat, handmade. It's got a little medallion on the back to ward off the evil spirits, or so it looks like. That's my conjecture.
Did he say about to say? Yeah, that's to ward off the.
Now, if you'd have been the bill on that hat he wore, it would be similar to the hats that Greg Norman used to wear.
Now, J-Dog, you actually listened to the interview today. We know he talked a lot about Deshaun Watson. Did anybody ask him about the Super Bowl and that whole thing? He's talked a little bit since then about what happened. I wonder if somebody's beating that dead horse again, because, Cam Newton's the first guy in the world to blow off the media after a big game. Greg Popovich does it every game, and it's colorful. Cam Newton does it. It's a travesty, and it's damaging to the kids of America.
As the chopper and dicer of cuts, we got a little bit of that in this. So we'll get to answer your questions once we get on into that interview. He covered that in about so many words.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. As we said before, the NFL quarterback position is held to a higher standard than a lot of standards of other positions in team sports. So he went to the podium, and he'll learn from this, because Panthers, they got to replace 3 people in their secondary. So he's going to have to be on this A game most of this season. First of all, they're going to be the hunted as the defending NFC champion. And then he's going to have to protect, by scoring points, a defense that's lost a ton in that back 7. Those 3 defensive backs who are stalwarts And it'll be important for him to be on his A game.
Yeah, it will be. And he's got the microscope on him. He's used to it. He's had that thing on him from
he was
way back when. Yeah.
No, that was
Florida to junior college to Auburn, and that whole cloud that followed him an entire season at Auburn straight into the NFL.
Now, remember, the Super Bowl was the only loss. Isn't that the only loss other than the Falcons loss, since he had that accident, since the auto accident?
Yeah, 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
You think that is a
I'm not asking him to have another accident. Yeah. No, that's not what I'm saying.
I don't think the Panthers want that either. We'll hear from Cam Newton coming up on the other side of a quick timeout. 800-956-7266. Let's check out a little Twitter. Some people sharing their opinions on how they feel about Steve Spurrier. Here's Kodak Zach tweets, I have none. So no opinion from Kodak Zach. Here's a gif of Ron Burgundy with the line, boy, that escalated quickly. Yes, it did. But everything Spurrier does happens abruptly. He abruptly left the Florida Gators. He abruptly resigned with the Washington Redskins. He abruptly left South Carolina football on the sideline, and he abruptly left as an ambassador. So not a huge surprise there. A few other tweets. Here's one. Really happy for him. Met his wife there, won a Heisman and championships there. It's where he belongs. That's Lansing Brown tweets indifferent. More pressure on McElwain than Muschamp. And Gamecock Trey tweets at us, happy that he found something productive to do after his retirement. That's within the field he's always known.
Well, you know, interesting. He says pressure on McElwain. You got to understand that Muschamp and Roper recruited McElwain to Florida. So it's not like Spurrier recruited this kid. He's coming to South Carolina and he's got the new coach there. No, he knew these coaches beforehand. Plus, he's a Columbia kid as far as his grandmother being here. His dad's from Columbia, graduated from the university. So it's a lot more things involved in just in who's coaching the football team.
Let's shift gears back over to the Carolina Panthers. Want to get to Cam Newton and what he had to say. His first time in front of the media at training camp as practice number 2 in the books. And here's what Cam had to say.
It's deeper than that. It's family, man. I've known Deshaun, when he was in high school. He was on my 7-on-7 All-Star team, amongst others. That's, this is kind of like our, when he was in high school, he was on my 7-on-7 All-Star team, amongst others. That's, this is kind of like our graduating class. That's going to be the first wing of coming into the NFL. Deshaun Watson, the Cameron Suttons, that's at Tennessee now. Numerous guys, and I always tell the Georgia Bulldogs that's on our team that they need to start thanking me for the talent that I've put in UGA in the last 2 years. But don't write that. But Deshaun is a special person. He's a person that has took his opportunity and made the most of it. Do I think he's done? Absolutely not. He hasn't even scratched the surface of the things that he's could possibly do at the college level. He's very dynamic, and there's pretty much nothing that he can't do on the football field. He gives a lot of teams fits, and it's just going to be up to him, and I kind of, we talk about it, just not getting lazy, that having that same freshman attitude for him and rookie attitude for me. When you first come into the place, everything is so new and so raw, and you try to consume everything. For him, he knows the system. But, going back to the things that made him great and still making him great at the same time, and as well as his legacy.
Cam, when we talked to you last month, it was clear your focus was on the 2016 season. You strike me as a guy who learns from his past, though. And so I'm just curious, the week leading up to the Super Bowl, is there anything when you go back and look at it that you wonder if you could have done differently, if the team could have done differently, or do you live with zero regrets from that?
I think something that you can do differently is focus on 2016 season. Nothing personal, but just there's no need. I gained nothing for going back. I'm so, tunnel vision with trying to make the most of each and every practice up until this point. I think we've passed that bridge, and I've learned from it, and making the most of this team because it's 2 different teams, and trying to make the best of our opportunity right now.
I guess that is the question, though, is what did you learn, as you say you learned from it? What have you learned from it to take to this 2016 season?
Well, it's more personal. I just can't sit up here and spill out my heart with things that I've learned, but, I'm a better person from it. Just know that.
Cam Newton, and that's the best way to answer that question. He doesn't gain anything by going back and talking about the Super Bowl and the loss and more importantly, the story there became how he handled the press conference. And I think if he could go back and do that again, he'd probably do it a little different. I do think it was blown entirely out of proportion by us. I mean, I have to say us. I can't say I'm a part of the media, and I've been in rooms where it's like, what are these guys doing? And they're making this big thing out of nothing. It's like, okay, I just want to talk.
We are the problem.
We are the media is really the problem in the entire world. That's what I'm told every day. It is a glorious night. I will say it live on air, J-Dog. I'm very happy this is the last night I have to do recruiting for a long time. Kornblut will be back from vacation on Monday, and I'm sure a lot of the recruiting nuts out there will be very happy to have Korn doing these reports, because I've been told that I don't do them with enough passion and enthusiasm. I really do give 100% in everything I do, including the recruiting report, which begins right now. Defensive back TJ Carter of Nashville has offers from USC, Auburn, Georgia Tech, Memphis, Louisville, Mississippi State, and Cincinnati. He says South Carolina is really at the top of his list, and he likes them a lot. He wants to get down there and take another visit. Carter has been to Memphis and Louisville. He'd like to get to USC as well, possibly for an official. He said his decision will be coming soon, possibly around the start of the school year. Last season, he had 25 tackles and broke up 11 passes. Wait, this isn't the right recruiting report. This is yesterday's recruiting report. Hold on, everybody. Just forget that. That was yesterday. Some people didn't. You probably didn't hear that, but I do want to get you.
Some people didn't hear that yesterday.
With the Brad Johnson. Well, yeah, Pendleton defensive end Brad Johnson is well off from a decision. Okay, he's well off. He's going to visit some campuses. His possibilities are Notre Dame, Michigan State, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, and Mississippi State, and Texas A&M is a possibility. Whoa. If you missed that, it's on our website. I said it last night. You can go back and watch the show tape.
If you're going to walk the dog, walk it proudly.
Goodness gracious. Now I got to start over. You see, I'm just beside myself now. Can we just start over?
Yeah.
Can we do that? Oh, wait. We're live, right? Oh, this is live radio. Okay. Defensive back Jonathan Abram of Jones County Junior College of Mississippi began his college career in the SEC at Georgia and appears destined to continue it in the same league following one season at a junior college. He said USC, Alabama, Tennessee, and LSU are the 4 schools working the hardest to gain his affection. He said USC's Will Muschamp is in regular contact with him, and the two talked again yesterday. He's been taking things slowly to this point, hasn't said any officials. He did say USC will get one of those official visits. Offensive lineman Jordan Carty of Hollywood, Florida, recently visited USC on July 18th. He said that went very well. He's 6'7", 283 pounds. He toured the facilities and said those are some of the main things that he likes about USC. Carty was offered by the Gamecocks in June, has other offers from NC State, North Carolina, West Virginia. He keeps in touch with the coaches at USC via text, but does not have any visits planned yet. He hopes to have a decision date set, but does not intend to release a top list anytime soon and does not have that decision date set. Okay, we have some other things to update, including Dutch Fork wide receiver Austin Connor and a new school in his top 4 and defensive back CJ Avery out of Mississippi. We're going to do those coming up on the other side of the top of the hour since we regurgitated a couple of recruiting notes for you. You can, if you can't wait till the next segment, you can go to our website, sportstalksc.com. A lot of stuff on the website for you, but we have good stuff coming up on the other side at the top of the hour break. We're going to talk some high school football, the Fomani, all sorts of things in hour number 2. So don't go anywhere.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Hour number 2 of Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary, the Professor, Tom Hayes, Jared Rogers Martin, a.k.a. J-Dog behind the glass. Glad you're with us. Happy Friday. You made it to the end of the week. Congratulations. Your reward, well, at least right now, another fine hour of Sports Talk here. And your immediate reward is some more recruiting that we had to hold over to the second hour. We left off with Dutch Fork wide receiver Austin Connor, who now has Vanderbilt as one of his top 4 schools after he visited campus Thursday. Along with Vanderbilt, Connor's other top schools are South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Georgia. He's 6 foot, 180 pounds, wants to major in engineering, so the school's academic reputation is very important to him. While Connor said he hasn't visited many colleges this summer or spoken with many recruiters, he's going to start plenty more visits in the future. He hopes to have a decision and announce on his birthday, September 23rd. Defensive back C.J. Avery of Grenada, Mississippi, released the top 5 today of Clemson, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Florida State, and Louisville. Defensive end Matthew Butler of Garner, North Carolina, a USC target, is set to release the top 4 Saturday, and it looks like USC will certainly be in it. Running back Aaron Collins of Seffner, Florida, committed to NC State today. He was offered by USC in June. 2018 Wilson defensive end Xavier Thomas was offered by Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, and Ole Miss today. He also has offers from USC and Clemson. Athlete Darian Kendrick of South Point visited USC today, and 2018 quarterback Emory Jones of Franklin, Georgia, committed to Ohio State today. He had Clemson in his top 4. Some things to keep an eye on over the weekend. Offensive lineman TJ Moore of Charlotte, a USC target, will visit Tennessee Saturday. He's narrowed his decision to the Gamecocks and Vols, plans to announce Monday. He visited USC last weekend. And defensive back Stephen Montag of Coffeyville Junior College in Kansas and Covington, Georgia native, has told Sports Talk that he's probably going to do something on Monday. He recently visited USC and said he was asked not to say much about the visit or his plans. He said he would let everyone know August 1st, which is the day players report to USC. He also has offers from Kansas, Missouri, and Boise State, among others. Now to basketball. Clemson and USC news here in basketball. USC's coaching staff spending a lot of time watching point guard C.J. Roberts of North Richland, Texas, at the various stops this summer, and they'll get a chance to see him up close and personal soon because he plans to take an unofficial to the Gamecocks in the near future. He's got Fresno State and Missouri as his newest offers as he was in Vegas. Missouri has been very aggressive, and he said he'd love to play in the SEC. Also has offers from Rhode Island, Rutgers, Houston, SMU, Alabama, Miami, Baylor, Kansas State, Illinois, Wichita State, and Southern Cal. Clemson remains in the picture for Missouri transfer 6'8" Jakenan Grant. The Georgia native averaged 5 points and 4 rebounds per game as a reserve for Mizzou last season. Gant was also suspended for a game last season after being cited for possession of drug paraphernalia. And 6'7" Najee Marshall committed to Xavier today. USC was in his final 7. We'll be right back. We've been counting down the days to football, and we're getting closer and closer. And today actually is a benchmark because it's the first day that high school football teams can practice. And David Shelton has been covering all of it for the High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier, and on Twitter and on Sports Talk now. David, happy high school football practice season.
Absolutely. It's Christmas in July. Christmas is here. Santa Claus has dropped the presents off, and now we're ready to get after it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean it's hot, but it's still football. Yeah. And I know you've been around. Who did you check out today?
I went out and did a feature on Berkeley with their new head coach, Randy Robinson, who came from Daniel. Berkeley coming off a really bad season last year, and he's got a lot of work to do to turn the general attitude around in the program, but I think he's doing a great job. And it was fun I've known Randy for as long as I've been doing this. He was one of the first coaches I met when I started doing this stuff. So he's been around a long time. I've been around a long time, but it was good to see him out there having a lot of fun with his new team.
What are some of the storylines now as practice cranks up down in the Low Country, but around the state that you're going to be following and the rest of us should be following?
Well, I think the first week it's going to be getting acclimated to the heat. I mean, it's hot everywhere in South Carolina. There isn't really it's not just hot in the Low Country or hot in the Upstate. It's hot everywhere. So it kind of feels hotter than it has been in recent years. Now, that may just be me because I'm getting older, but it does feel unseasonably warm. So I think you're going to have to pay special attention to that for the first week or two. And the rest of it is, it's just typical football. The good teams are going to be good again. And, you wait to see if anything happens with injuries and all that. But, the first couple of weeks until you get some scrimmages in, it's going to be really hard to tell. I mean, today they were just in helmets. So, everybody's undefeated on July 29th.
Yes, they are.
Well, I think the most fascinating thing is obviously historically you've had Somerville, but everybody, if you go to the Upstate, that's where football was invented. High school football, if you ask anybody up there. But David, over the years, we've seen a Fort Dorchester, a Goose Creek, these teams in the Low Country, and obviously every time we go down to Charleston, the population boom down there in that entire area. Have you personally seen a positive effect in the football in the Low Country and specifically the Charleston area because of that population boom?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see it a little more. I mean, this area is just growing unbelievably. I mean, some areas over near Somerville, not where Somerville High School is, but the area of Somerville, the city, out near like Cane Bay and areas like that, their houses going up by the hundreds with the Volvo plant coming over to this area. And you are starting to see, with Boeing coming in a few years ago, you're starting to see those people have kids that are growing up. They're 4 of the top 10 schools in attendance are right here. I mean, 3 of them in Dorchester County plus Wando that's got like 1 million students. So, I think you're starting to see that, and I think it's starting to have some effect. There's still on a lot of great teams in the Low Country, not teams that you would consider state contenders, but there's getting better, and I think the players are getting better. There are some good players.
What new coaches are you looking forward to watching settle into their new programs? I know you just mentioned the situation at Berkeley. Any other new gigs that you have your eye on?
Well, I think it's interesting because Randy left a good program at Daniel to come to Berkeley. So Jeff Brewster, who's taken over at Daniel, was his defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach. It's going to be interesting to see. He's never been a head coach before, and he's taken over a good program with some really good players. And I think that's going to be one that people will have their eye on. Around the state, nothing jumps out. I mean, there's a new coach at Battery Creek, and there's a new coach at Union County. Billy Adams left Georgetown to go to Union County. I think a lot of eyes will be on him because he's sort of unknown, but he's done a really good job at Georgetown, and he's going to have a lot more talent at Union County than he had at Georgetown. So I think that one will be one because Union County is a football town, a football town. I think people were a little disappointed with Steve Tannehill. So I think Bradley Adams will be one to watch to see how he can turn that program around.
Well, David, we go to you for the advice. You got to help us here, and the fans also. Is it going to be tough? I don't know what is this, a 3-year period, this realignment and going to 5A? Do you see it as something that's going to go smoothly, or are we going to see some hiccups in this system?
No, well, they realign every 2 years, but as far as the 5A system, I think it's here to stay. I think it's going to be good. I heard a lot of positive stuff at the coaches clinic this past week. In fact, I even heard people talking about a 6A because the disparity between the numbers after you get out of the top 20 schools, those last 22 that are in 5A, there's a big gap in attendance. If you look at Wando right now, over 4,000 students. James Island is also 5A, and they're about 38th or 39th, and they have like 1,600 students. So you're talking about 2,400 students difference between number one and near the bottom of 5A. So, I don't know that 6A is going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years, but I think with the population growth, especially in the low country, you're going to see bigger schools. But I love 5A. I personally think it's a great idea. I like the way they balanced them out. Yeah, there's going to probably be some people griping about, they were right on the border and they should have been in a different classification. But when you look down the line, 4A became very competitive. We bring up teams like South Point and Hartsville and Belton Honeypath and Daniel, like that were traditional 3A schools are now 4A schools. And then you go down the line, Dillon, which has been the most dominant team in 2A in the last 6 years, is now a 3A school. So it kind of adds a little intrigue there. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch to see how all these schools handle their new classifications. But the playoff system is set. It's fairly easy. In 5A, you're going to have to win 5 playoff games to win a state championship. That'll make it a good test to see who's durable enough. But I think it's going to be great, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing. Yeah, there may be a few issues here and there, but the way it's set up, I don't really see anything that stands out as a major issue.
Good deal. Before we let you go, David, I wanted to get your thoughts on a story you did earlier in the Post and Courier about the pitch counts and the new rules that could be coming to high school baseball next season. Do you feel confident that that's going to come through? And I think we are in agreement that that's probably a pretty good thing for high school baseball.
Oh, without a doubt, and it's going to happen. I mean, they've been sort of told by the National Federation you will have something on the books and use this coming season. So by February 1, there's going to be, so to speak, a law on the books.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the pitch count thing. I like the way they set it up. I'm not sure the 120 pitch count max is going to stick. I think you'll see it expand to about 105. I think the Coaches Association tried to stick that in there to see how far it would go, but I honestly don't think the executive committee, when it comes down to it, I think you're going to see the max at about 105 with a minimum 4 days rest. If you reach 105, you have to have 4 calendar days off before you can pitch again. And yeah, it's needed. Unfortunately, they don't have many rules in summer ball, and a lot of these kids are getting abused in summer ball. So the high school coaches have to take the lead. You got to have it in high school. Then hopefully it funnels down to the lower levels and people start taking a little bit better care of the arms, because the statistics say from 2009 to 2012 or whatever it was, 57% of the Tommy John surgeries were on kids 15 to 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's just not acceptable. That's too much, too high. And, will it cut down? I think it will. Will it cure it? No.
Right.
Because kids are still throwing a lot of curveballs and things like that. But you have to do something to start the conversation. I think the Coaches Association did that this week.
Good stuff. David Shelton, we appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Take care.
David Shelton from the High School Sports Report, also with the Charleston Post and Courier, and you will hear him a lot going forward here on Sports Talk on Friday nights here on the show and during the scoreboard show updates on South Carolina Radio Network. We'll be right back. All right, 800-956-7266. We can get back to your phone calls now. Thanks again to David Shelton for joining us there to talk a little high school football. Let's say cranked up practice today, and we're going to take all the football we can get. You know, Monday is USC's media day. Will Muschamp and players Monday afternoon, so we'll have that for you on the program, and then they'll be out running around on Tuesday. Clemson also starts practice next week, and we're going to hit the ground running here. August is going to blow by, and we're going to have football coming at us fast and furious. We're going to blink our eyes, and it's going to be Thanksgiving, and we're going to be talking about South Carolina Clemson at Death Valley.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, how teams play. I've always said it's a happy medium you have to strike with how many times that guy's really hit, because we've seen. I'm not so certain that from a mental standpoint, a lot of these injuries happen because guys don't hit enough. I mean, sometimes if you put me in a plastic bag and say, just come out on the field on Saturdays, and boy, then suddenly you get a big hit, I'm not so certain you're ready for it.
Well, that's the one thing you don't want to hear. Really, over the next month, you don't want any news coming out of your camp. Now, South Carolina's going to have to name a starting quarterback at some point. Although, yeah, I mean, if you're Will Muschamp, you have nothing to gain. I have a feeling that'll come down to the game week, and it might even be one of those, we're going to find out on game day. I don't know what Will Muschamp's track record is on that. We'll have to feel him out. But you don't really gain anything unless you want to let the team know who the guy is. But oftentimes I think they tell the guy, it's you, don't say anything because we don't want it out. We're going to keep it in-house. But how long will it take South Carolina to name a starting quarterback? Would you like something to happen early on? Maybe. I still think it's going to be Perry Orth, at least starting that game against Vanderbilt because of his experience.
Muschamp has already said he wants it done early.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, the young quarterbacks, you got two true freshmen on that field. I want to take the pressure off them early on. So I agree with you. I think Perry Orth will be tabbed the starting quarterback for the Vanderbilt game.
Yeah, and I think McElwain will play.
Could you imagine if you're 18 years old and you're McElwain or Bentley, and suddenly somebody tells you the second week of practice you're the starter? You know how many scenarios will be running through their heads?
Well, you got to have if you're good enough to get the job, you got to be the mental part of it, and that's the big thing. I don't think there's anybody questioning the talent, but you get a guy out there before he's ready and he starts thinking too much and he's moving a little bit slower because his brain's trying to figure out what to do. And I know Vanderbilt isn't a hostile environment per se, but it is the opener. Yes. They're going to have some people there. It's on a Thursday night. So they're going to have a decent crowd, and there's still going to be nerves no matter what. Perry Orth, to me, is the safer guy. Now, maybe there's more upside, and McElwain might win the job. But if they're still equal, then why not let McElwain know you're going to play some, but you don't ask the kid to go out and win a football game as a true freshman. That's a tall order. So that's why I think Perry Orth will get the start. We'll get back to phone calls, tweets, email, and other things momentarily. Want to welcome in Monty Dutton. It's our Full Monty segment, talking a little NASCAR. Get the review, first of all, of the dominant weekend in Indy by Kyle Busch. Goodness gracious. I think he's still winning something. I think he was the first one out of the parking lot to go to Pocono after his weekend.
Yeah, he beat everybody to Pocono. You're right.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's sort of an opportune link here, because while Pocono is not like any track, it is most like Indy. And so Busch goes there with a good head of steam. I also think that Martin Truex, who won the pole there, is a big choice there. But getting back to Indy, it's a mighty big event with a mighty small amount of people at it. And I'm afraid that when you have a whitewashing like Kyle Busch did, I don't think it. I wonder how much longer NASCAR is going to have a race at the Brickyard. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, normally they can hide it, but even just on the front stretch where you would expect there to be a good clump of fans, it was empty seats.
Yeah, I think it's hard to hide empty seats when there's 235,000 of them. But I think that if I was really guessing, I think that the Indianapolis Star estimated the crowd at 50,000. Oddly enough, I used to estimate the crowds when I was at the racetrack. And I discovered that many times you have to put a good bit into it, because it's the same way if you were at the Gamecock football game. You can't really see the empty spaces when you're looking laterally. The truth is that when you're watching on TV and you're watching from the overhead camera, that's really the best way to see it. And I'm going to tell you, my considered opinion is that there was about 35,000 people there.
Wow. I mean, you would think that a track, and that's such a traditional place, and I know that it's an Indy track traditionally, but why can't they get more people out there?
Well, it's expensive. I think that in some ways, the fact that this year was the 100th Indy 500 and the place was packed stole all the interest. I also think that, by the way, since it won't be the 100th next year, I expect that the Indy 500 will not sell out again, although they will have a throng next year. But anyway, the interesting thing about it, it's like everything else in life. We know how bad things are, but we overlook that they were just as bad 50 years ago. For instance, at Indianapolis, 20 years ago. Okay, you can't see all the way around the track. It was that way in 1994 when they had 280,000 people for the stock car race. Indy is a difficult track, and I get a certain amount of excitement out of watching these cars that are wholly unfit for competing there go around and race inches from the wall. The inches from the wall thing, maybe it's just me, but it's one of the attractions that I have for Darlington. And so I have some interest in it, but it was a race that you monitored. You didn't watch closely, and by not watching closely, you didn't see the subtleties that might come through if you did. Racing is a sport that you have to really enjoy. You have to watch it very closely. I think that's the oddest thing, but I believe that that's true. That's true of baseball too. Couldn't be anything more different than baseball and racing. But people who don't like baseball, people don't know much about it. And by and large, I write a Bleacher Report column every week. I read 1,000 trolls, well, not 1,000. This week I did have a big readership, and so you have all these people, and the only reason they do is to write down there. Right. NASCAR's nothing but a bunch of rednecks, and you're a redneck because you write about it. And I write back. Actually, I write about it because they pay me.
Yeah, and the old "who cares?" Well, you apparently care enough to read it and then comment. So.
That is actually the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
If everybody who writes me that they're never going to watch another race again, I should be humbled, because even though they don't watch any of the races, they write me every week. They read me every week for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, tell us this. I think I think it was last year this time you were talking about Kevin Harvick and these second place finishes. In your opinion, I think that he had the best ride. What is he doing? Has anything changed? What has him? I guess it's a long way to go, but what has him on top of the point standings right now? Is he a better?
The same thing that consistent drivers always are at the top of the point standings for. Unfortunately, now with just a few more races for the chase, if you have won a race, being at the top of the point standings is no more value to having butterscotch instead of chocolate frosting on your donut. He still has a great knack for finishing second. However, I think that the balance of power has shifted. I think second is a little bit better now because a year ago, the Chevrolets were the top make, and I don't think there's any question that they're winning this year. But Toyotas have an edge, particularly at tracks like Indy and this one, and a lot of the intermediate tracks. I think that the performance of the Toyotas is clearly the best right now.
Now, you're not sure that it's a good thing that Kyle Busch is this dominant right now for NASCAR.
Well, I don't think – I have nothing against Kyle Busch. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that he I've dealt with him for a long time. I don't ever buy it when people say it's the new Kyle Busch. He's grown up. Because everybody is charitable and dignified when things are going their way. The trust with Kyle Busch, the problem with Kyle Busch is that, you know, he's one of those people like your mother used to say, you know, better watch him when he pokes his lips out. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is not very graceful when things don't go his way. And so you know, he's going to have to go. I want to see him face adversity, you know, and handle it in a good fashion. That having been said, athletes in general are not particularly noted for being great sportsmen, and a lot of times when they are, they get tagged with being too nice a guy. So I dealt with people like that constantly, and the fact is that when most race car drivers, when they're in their right mind, are wonderful fellows, you know. But I mean, and also no one should be judged by their worst time. So I remember when I was young, I showed my rear end royally sometimes when things didn't go my way. And I also think that athletes, as a general rule, the world prevents them from growing up because it worships them so much. And so it's really hard when you're 18 years old and you just got given a $10 million bonus. It's hard for that not to change a man. And so we ought to at least recognize that the world changes toward them at least as much as they change toward the world.
So this weekend, is it one of those deals where, like in the old Tiger Woods at his heyday thing, where you just say, okay, I'll take Kyle Busch and give you the field? Are we at that stage for Pocono this weekend?
I think Truex could be. I think that I think that there's a lot of people who can give him a good run. I actually think that last week's race was abnormally bad, just like the same way that a 49-0 football win over, you know, McNeese State is not a great game, but not all of them are. But I mean, I think there's a reasonable expectation that Pocono will be a better race than Indianapolis, just as there is a reasonable expectation that if you order a ribeye steak, it will be better than cauliflower.
Good point.
Last week's race was a cauliflower.
Yes, it was.
Or a rutabaga.
Yeah, we want some.
This week I want lobster tail.
Lobster
I probably
tail
won't get it to Bristol.
Yeah, surf and turf. Definitely, we want some surf and turf. Monty, we appreciate it. We'll look for your Bleacher Report story column after the race this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Corn will be back next week.
I always appreciate that you abiding my nonsensical ramblings. Thanks a lot.
We enjoy it. It's one of our favorite parts of the week. We know it's Friday when we get the full Monty. We'll talk to you again next week, same time here on Sports Talk. All right, Pocono Pro. I'm going to go ahead and go with Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch.
He's never going to lose again.
He'll lose.
He's going to win every single race.
He's going to wreck early in
That's
this one.
Yeah, somebody should just wreck him, take him out. Get him. I like the angry Kyle Busch. I want to see somebody get mad. More Sports Talk upcoming. Do not go away. Winding it down on a Friday night here on Sports Talk in our Sports Talk studios high above Main Street, downtown Columbia, overlooking the city as the sun sets and the heat, thankfully, eases just a little bit. Boy, it has been hot, and hopefully it'll cool off a little bit as we crank up high school football practices, preseason camps for college teams. You know, the Panthers working out in Spartanburg. I don't think anybody on the gridiron would complain about a slight drop in temperature, but I don't know that we're going to get it, Pro. But I don't think anybody would complain if we did. The Panthers did work out this afternoon right in the sweltering thick of it. Kelvin Benjamin was back on the field. A year ago, he injured his knee in Spartanburg, and that cost him his entire 2015 season, but he's back. He's healthy, and he said Panther GM Dave Gettleman told him it's time to get back to work.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I remember Mr. Gettleman coming to me, you know, it's time to wipe the tears off and get to work, you know. Just by him coming and telling me that, you know, just, you know, forget about it, move on, you know. I mean, man, that year seemed like it flew by so fast. Look at it, we back at camp, you know.
How bad did you need to hear that from?
I did, because I think, you know, once something bad happened in a human being life, you know, you get real down on yourself, but knowing just eventually it gonna phase away.
Can you talk about a couple of years ago that receivers were one of the weak points of the team? Now it's one of the strengths of the team.
I mean, I think the guys just coming together, you know, playing as a family, man, for one another, you know, blocking down field for one another. You know, Ted, man, Philly, Funches, you know, all them guys, man, Bursting. You know, it's like a family in that thing, you know.
Are you going to wear a brace this year?
Not at all.
No. Did you try one on and just didn't like it, or you just?
Early on they recommended one, but I think a brace just gonna make me think about it. You know, I'm gonna see that brace. I'm gonna feel it.
What goals are you setting for yourself this season?
I mean, come back to be the best player I can be. You know what I mean? I think I left my rookie year. I left so much on the field. I was so excited to come in for that second year. You know, definitely want to just get back and just be me and make plays on the field when my name's being called.
You had 73 catches and like 1,000 yards. What'd you leave out there?
So much. I mean, it was so much, man. I ate bad that year. I didn't take care of my body that as well that year. I had a lot of drop passes that I could have had on the field. MAs. It was so much I could have improved on.
What do you think of Cam's little blonde factor?
Swag, man. That's Cam. Yeah, trendsetter.
First impressions of the rookie corners?
Oh, they're doing good, man. You know, they're coming into their own. It's all about building confidence in camp, and I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to come into their own and build their confidence.
How did you, after the Super Bowl and everyone's down, obviously you're down, how did you try to lift the guys up as you've been the cheerleader there on the team for a while, especially Cam?
I mean, just look forward to next year, man. You know, like I said, it's a past. You got to move on. You can't dwell on it. You know, it hurts, you know, but that's just like going to that restaurant and getting a piece of that steak and then get to finish, you know.
Was there part of you that night that wondered, would things have been differently and against Denver had you been on the field?
Oh, definitely, man. The whole time, all I was thinking, like, man, I wish I could run one route, you know, go catch one pass. But, you know, that wasn't reality, so.
Last question right here. What have you been doing in the offseason to prepare for this season?
So much. Lifting a lot of weights to get stronger. A lot of conditioning, running, getting back into the football shape. Actually, that was my first practice in almost a year, so I mean, I was a little bit winded. So, like I said, I get a couple of runs in after practice to finish that off. I think that'd be good.
Kelvin Benjamin, and you know Cam Newton will be very excited to see him back on the field. He had a great rookie season, really showed his promise to be the go-to wide receiver. And I got to say, when he went down last year, looking at the Panthers' offense, you're looking at the wide receivers going, who is going to step up? And it turned out it was just a group of guys. Devin Funchess ended up being pretty good. Ted Ginn played very well in that role. But as we saw in the Super Bowl, they needed Kelvin Benjamin. Yeah, you got to have a number one guy, and they have a true number one guy now. If the other guys can step up again, if Funchess, and you have Jeremy Shockey, who's just like a receiver at the tight end spot, certainly as a pass catcher, but you want somebody on the out you can go to, and he can consistently make plays. And with Cam Newton and what he did with his legs, and if Jay Stu stays healthy there at running back, he played very well when he was healthy. And you have Tolbert, they have other guys, Fozzie. made some plays. Their offense could be pretty good. I mean, they were very good last year, but their defense is what makes them go.
Well, the interesting thing is I'm not so certain Benjamin makes a lot of difference because his quarterback was getting harassed. I don't know if he could have.
There were some dropsies, though, especially early. Some plays that would have
on those linebackers too. I mean,
there were some plays to be had out there that weren't made. You got to make plays in the Super Bowl, but yeah, the Bronco defense had a lot to do with that as well. Final segment of the week here on Sports Talk, and it's been a fun week. We got through it. I mean, some people call these the dog days of summer. Well, the dog days of summer are over because we have plenty of football to discuss going forward. As camps will commence, we have USC, their media day on Monday, Clemson getting started Tuesday, and we'll hear from Will Muschamp, Dabo Swinney, players, et cetera, et cetera. The Palmetto Pigskin Tour will be cranking up around the state. Corn Blue will stop at each and every one of our in-state schools, and we're really excited. It's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Some new things happening here on Sports Talk that we're very excited about. We know that you'll be very excited about it. A new season, so you got to tweak. Always getting better. This is going to be, 3 decades plus strong on Sports Talk. I haven't been here for all of them. Corn Blue, as we all know, he's been doing this like seriously. His first caller was a Brontosaurus. That's how long Corn Blue has been doing this show. Yes, he's been around for a while. Fire had not been invented yet. I don't know how they did radio, but he's been doing it since the cavemen were roaming the earth. But we have a lot of big things that will be dropping on you soon, so stay tuned for that. One of them is already the bag because we have J-Dog back there.
Hey, guys, that's me, Shiny New.
Yep, Shiny New. He's our new toy. We've just been working in the death. He didn't realize what he got into when he took this job.
Just down in the doldrums now.
You're probably wishing you were back at UGA somewhere right about now.
Just chewing me up, frying me in the heat out here.
That's what happens. Yeah, a little different weather here than Minnesota.
Hey, it is different is not even a word. What is it? 30 degrees here, 60 degrees. 30 degrees in the winter, 90 in the summer. You do that 60 degrees different again, and that's a Minnesota winter.
Yeah, well, yeah, you will be happy in the winter. And Corn will be back we're told, on Monday. So we'll have the full gang here for the first time in forever. I mean, there were a lot of things going on. I know I haven't been around much this summer handling other duties with the network, but we're going to have the whole team back together, the whole gang, for better or for worse. Yeah, very interesting.
Well, one of the things that happened, I guess, during this week that we really didn't talk about, but, you know, sometimes what great minds do, if they're great minds, is admit when you made a mistake. Just go ahead and admit it and not be hard-headed. Well, the College Football Playoff Executive Committee is changing the dates of future semifinals to make sure they fall on either a Saturday or a holiday.
Good, but they're still going to have some on New Year's Eve. That was my one complaint. But it is progress. You shouldn't do it at all on New Year's Eve, even if it is on a Friday or Saturday, because you have other stuff going on. You have parties, dinners.
You want the fringe fan watching. The fringe fan on New Year's Eve, their first mind is partying, not football.
Yeah.
Us football fans, we're going to.
Yeah, we'll have it on in the background. But even I was at a New Year's Eve party, and I'm watching the games, but I'm still distracted because I got to try the cheese dip and the brie. And I want to be able to sit down and just focus on the football. That's what New Year's Day is. Because you're so hungover from New Year's Eve, that's all you want to do is sit around and watch football.
Sit down and watch it.
Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be back on Monday for a full-fledged sports talk with Cornback. Woohoo!